In a little over 8 months, I added over $573,000 in organic revenue to a sports nutrition brand called thefeed.com, all while their paid costs to acquire customers just kept rising and rising. And here's the thing, they were already a successful brand. They were doing in the range of tens of millions of dollars per year, and they were spending a lot on ads, but they were kind of trapped in that paid ads hamster wheel, right? They were spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars per month on paid ads, depending on the month. And CPMs kept rising. They were always at the whims of the next algorithm change. Theoretically, they could have been banned at any moment and lost a lot of sales overnight. Luckily, that didn't happen to them. So if you're an e-commerce brand owner tired of being stuck on the paid ads hamster wheel, giving money to Google and Meta month after month, stick around. I'm going to go through the exact framework that we use to help thefeed.com add over $500,000 in organic revenue. And don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to write more blogs or buy more backlinks. This is a complete framework of how to think about this for yourself. It's very purchase intent focused, right? We're not going to be writing blogs. We're going to be building collection pages targeting really high purchase intent keywords, the types of keywords that people like search on Google and they're actually ready to buy. My name's Mike Sack. I'm the owner and founder of SEOasis. And over the past several years, we've helped dozens of e-commerce brands add anywhere from $50,000 to $500,000 in monthly organic revenue to their top line, all using this exact framework I'm about to explain in this video. So the same framework again that we use for thefeed.com to add over $500,000 to their top line. We used it to help TriRig, a triathlon company, add $66,000 to their top line. We used it to help Roofnest to rank first on Google for a super competitive keyword and drive an extra $188,000 in sales over the course of 3 months. So watch this video to the end, pay attention, take notes, and then you'll be able to apply it to your own brand. Let's get started. All right, before we get into exactly how we help the feed, I just have to make one clear distinction of why e-commerce brands tend to not trust SEO, because I've talked to a lot of brands and they always say something along the lines of, oh, we tried SEO in the past, but it didn't really help, didn't do anything. It didn't lead to more revenue. And then I ask, what did you do? And they always say something along the lines of, well, we had a guy writing a bunch of blogs for us, put out a bunch of blogs last year and nothing really came of it. And herein lies the biggest mistake a lot of brands make, not just e-commerce brands really, but it shows up more drastically in e-commerce brands because you're making all your money through your website, is that they're just targeting the wrong keywords, right? The keyword that you target for a blog is going to be a lot different than the keyword you target for a collection page, right? And I have this example of Gymshark here. They're just obviously a very successful brand and they do very well organically because I can tell that they invest a lot of money into this just based on how their website is set up. And the types of keywords that you put on a collection page are going to be very like transactional, right? They're obviously keywords people are searching when they're looking for a specific type of product. Whereas with a blog, the keywords you target are more questions people are asking or topics about the types of products you sell or giving solutions for different problems people have within your niche, right? These are types of things people search, not when they're looking to buy, but they're either very top of funnel, like just doing research, or maybe they're not even in the market at all. They just had a quick question and they Googled it and your blog came up. So even if you were ranked first for every blog that you ever put out ever, it's going to drive very little revenue because the types of keywords you target in there are not the types of keywords that drive revenue. And so this is the biggest mistake I see people make, just targeting non-transactional keywords. And so this is just an example of what a good collection page work looks like. You know, someone searching long sleeve tops is looking for a type of shirt to wear, or even long sleeve gym tops is even more specific and more transactional, right? So a lot of brands, including the feed, put a lot of effort into blogs and not so much effort into building out collection pages targeting the types of keywords that actually drive revenue. This is the biggest mistake I see e-commerce brands making over and over again. Now, when it comes to the feed, they had this issue, but they had a whole host of issues before we even got to something like this. Anytime I work with a client, I take them through 2 phases. Phase 1 is kind of setting the foundation, optimizing the existing site, which tends to lead to a pretty big lift in revenue alone, which is a whole other topic that we'll get into. And then phase 2 is building out this bottom of funnel content engine where we're creating collection pages targeting these transactional keywords on a month-to-month basis. And so where we started with the feed and how we helped them, when they came to me, they had a few issues. They'd never really invested anything into SEO. And, you know, one of the things is they just had poor fundamentals. Right off the bat, I could tell, you know, pages were missing, weren't targeting specific keywords. Page title also meta descriptions, stuff that you just like need, like fundamentally need on your website. And they're missing schema markup. Product pages didn't have the right keywords in them. The H1s were not, even though they were the product that it was selling, they weren't like the way people were searching for that product necessarily. So there's a lot of untapped opportunity there. And then a big one was also their internal linking structure was lacking. So the two things within the foundation, essentially with the feed, all I had to do for them was at the start was just set this foundation for them. That included optimizing the product pages, improving their internal linking structure, improving their schema markup, all these things listed here that they just didn't have. When you take a site, especially a site as big as theirs, that was generating a lot of traffic already, through paid ads and email, especially for them, and you take a site that is in this state of this unoptimized state to this optimized state where Google has a much easier time figuring out what pages are about, what pages on the site are important, you just see a big lift. Sometimes it's as easy as that. Another big issue that they had was that they had thousands and thousands of SKUs, tons of collection pages. It was hard to know where to start for them, right? They just didn't know have a good framework for knowing how to prioritize what pages to work on. And so that was one big thing I helped them with, was I was able to prioritize which pages to work on based on which pages had the most potential to drive the most revenue, right? So this is what I would call a tipping point page. And so a tipping point page, every website has some amount of these. These are pages that have good conversion rates. So just by good conversion rate, take that average conversion rate across your entire site and find pages that are over that average, right? So if your average is 2%, anything over 2% would be a good conversion rate. So they have good conversion rates. They're also ranking somewhere between 5th and say 11th. There's some flexibility there, but generally between 5th and 11th on Google already, meaning they're already kind of ranking well, but with just a little work and tweaking the copy on the page to match the keyword that it's ranking 5th to 11th for, you can get it ranking up higher, pretty quickly with relatively little effort. And so that's always where you want to start with a website. Find your like tipping point pages, low hanging fruit, if you will, and get those ranking more, because there's a big difference in click-through rate. And by that, like how much traffic you can actually drive to a website by going from 5th position to 3rd position, say. There's a huge jump in click-through rate between 5th and 3rd position, whereas going from 10th to 5th position, there isn't really a big, you'll get a couple percent, but going from 5th to 3rd position, you'll go from like a 2% click-through rate to like a 10% click-through rate. So you're going to 5x your click-through rate. And so we want to find those keywords that are almost ranking well, tweak them for the keywords that they're ranking well for, make sure the copy includes them, and then we can get them up into those top 3 positions pretty quickly. And if you go from 5th to 1st position, you can, depending on the keyword, I've seen pages get like almost a 30% click-through rate when they're in the 1st position. And here's a graph to illustrate that, right? You can see here, this is just across the entire internet. And you can see this is a position versus click-through rate here on the x-axis. And you can see in the 10th position, your click-through rate is 1.6. And in the 5th position, it's 3.6. So you get an extra 2% going from 10th to 5th. But you go from 5th to 2nd, and you go from 3.6 to 11.5%. And then here it has the click-through rate at 42%. So there's a huge jump from 2nd to 1st. Again, 42% is a little high in my opinion, but at least for e-commerce. But you get the idea. Like there's it's non-linear, this relationship. So really go anywhere from 5th to 11th. There's really no difference. But once you get into the top 5 and especially the top 3, there's a big jump in click-through rate, and therefore a big jump in traffic, organic traffic, because more people are clicking on your links. And since these are pages that have better than average conversion rates, they'll drive a good amount of revenue relatively quickly for you. So this is how you prioritize pages. You want to find, again, pages, good conversion rates, ranking between 5th and 11th that you can easily tweak with keywords, adding keywords in the copy to help them rank in these top 3 positions to drive more revenue relatively quickly. By the way, if you want me to do this entire framework for your e-commerce business, find the tipping point pages, do all the keyword research, build the collection pages, optimize your schema, etc., click the first link in the description below. You can book a call with me so we can chat about your business. All right, now back to the video. Now that we know which pages to go after, we have to decide what keywords to optimize them for. And so this is another place I see people go wrong all the time. There's a couple ways to go about this. So let's say you found 10 pages on your website that fits the tipping point page criteria, and now you have to know which keywords to optimize them for. Without getting into too much nuance here, there's really 2 main ways that you want to think about this. First of all, go into Google Search Console. Google literally tells you what keywords a page ranks well for. And so you want to take, say it's ranking, there's like a few keywords that it's ranking in that 5th to 11th position for. You want to take those keywords that Google Search Console gives you and just add them to the copy. If it's the main keyword, make sure it's in the H1. If it doesn't really seem like a main keyword, like if it's a product page and it's kind of like the keyword is like best insert product name or product category, I guess. You could include that somewhere in the product description if you want. Just make sure you're adding the keywords that Google Search Console gives you. The other way to think about this is, again, always start keyword research with the idea in mind that you want to find the keywords that have the highest potential to drive more revenue for you. There's a few criteria that a keyword has to meet, in my eyes, for it to be considered worthy of optimizing for. The first is that if you were to rank first for it, it would drive a meaningful amount of revenue for your business. Right? And that means different things for different websites. A site doing $20,000 per month, significant for them could be an extra $500 a month, right? That's a 2.5% increase to their top line. If you're doing $100,000 per month, you might have to find a keyword that adds $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 per month, whatever. But it has to drive a meaningful increase in revenue for your business if you were to rank first for it. Essentially what this comes down to is search volume, but it's not just search volume, which we'll get into in a second, but really it is like, does this have a reasonable amount of search volume? The second criteria that a keyword has to meet in my eyes is it has to be transactional, right? So how do you figure this out? You could use a tool like SEMrush. It gives you, keyword intent. And if you're doing it for a lot of keywords at once, you might just want to use that. But if you don't have that many keywords to look at, just do a quick Google search and see what Google ranks, right? So if we were to search long sleeve gym tops, right? Bunch of products, collection page, more products, collection page, Amazon, collection page, collection page. It is a very, very transactional keyword. Someone searching long sleeve gym tops wants to buy a long sleeve gym top. Now, if we were to modify this keyword a little bit, best long sleeve gym tops. I don't know what's going to come up here, but we're starting to get blogs and Reddit, more Reddit. It's still transactional. There's still product grids. There's still collection pages showing up. But now I'm seeing Reddit and blogs come up. So to me, that means it's still transactional, but slightly less so, right? Someone searching best long sleeve gym tops might be wanting to buy a shirt. They might just be doing research on the best long sleeve gym tops. Anyway, if you were to do a search and it was just all blogs, that would not be transactional. That would be very informational. Google knows that people searching that are looking for a specific piece of information. Whereas if when you do a search and a bunch of products show up, a bunch of collection pages show up, then it's transactional. So the keyword has to have good search volume and be transactional. Lastly, the last criteria it has to meet is that you have to be able to reasonably compete for it. If you are a new shoe brand and you make red tennis shoes, you are not going to rank for the keyword red tennis shoes. I don't care how good your shoes are, you just will not rank for that because it's way too competitive. There's going to be Nordstrom's, Adidas, Nike, Steve Madden, Converse. It's all these product grids. Then you get to Foot Locker, Nordstrom again, Asics. These are billion-dollar brands that, unless you're also a billion-dollar brand, you're just not going to outrank them without investing tens of thousands of dollars per month into things like backlinks and PR or using influencers to drive people to search for your specific thing. And then maybe in 10 months, you can rank for red tennis shoes. Even if this keyword meets all the other criteria for you, it's not worth the time unless, again, you have tens of thousands of dollars to invest into this one keyword every month, which most people don't. But, red tennis shoes for walking, I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now. It doesn't seem to have any search volume, but if it did, it looks a little less competitive, but still pretty competitive. Anyway, the point being is you have to reasonably compete for it. And the one way to think about this is you can use a tool like SEMrush to look at keyword difficulty. Again, it gives you an overall score for that for every keyword, and that's a good metric to use. And so most of the time you can just go off of that. If it's a keyword you really want to go after, you can spend a little bit more time and look at the keyword or the backlink gap between what you have for your website and what the number 1, 2, and 3 positions for that keyword, how many backlinks they have pointing to the page that's ranking, and just figure out maybe if it's a reasonable delta to close that gap. For the most part, you can just use keyword difficulty. And yeah, those are the 3 criteria. to choose a keyword for a page when you want to optimize it. Then of course you have to actually optimize the page, and I won't go too deep into it, but obviously you need it in the H1. Ideally, if it's a collection page, you have some text at the top that you also throw it in, and then at the bottom you have some more text with a bunch of internal links. Yeah, just at a super high level, make sure it's in H1, in the content, in the page title, meta description, and there are internal links on other pages pointing to this page with the anchor text of the keyword that you want, right? So for long sleeve workout t-shirts or shirts, this is internally linked on t-shirts and tops page using long sleeve gym tops, right? Which is another variation of this keyword. So you want to make sure it exists. It's linked to a few different times on different pages with internal links like this. And that is really all we did for them. We didn't even have to get into the keyword cluster stuff that we do for a lot of clients. They had a lot of pages that we just spent all our time optimizing their existing site essentially, because again, they had thousands and thousands of pages, and we ended up optimizing somewhere in the range of 1,000 pages for them. And it just worked really well. Organic traffic for those top 300 pages, the pages driving the most revenue, increased by 27%. 340 pages moved on to the first page. 227 of those were in the top 5 positions. So where that click-through rate really starts to creep up. And the volume of those 340 keywords was 1 million searches per month. So essentially we took their websites and got it in front of 1 million more people per month. And when you do that, that drives a lot of revenue, right? You know, we were able to add an additional 573,000 in revenue. And when we started, they were averaging, back here, 5,000 per day. This is daily sales from organic traffic here, averaging 5,000 per day-ish. And then by the end, when we stopped working with them, they were averaging about 15,000 per day. So tracking kind of broke in this little range here, which is why it looks weird. But like I said, taking a website and just getting the fundamentals right. At this scale, it adds up to big numbers, which is fun, but it works at the smaller scale too, right? Worked for TriRig, Roofnest, Heartland Flags. I could go on with a bunch of different examples. And look, if you follow everything I talked about in this video, you absolutely could have results like this as well. I gave you the framework. You understand tipping point pages. You understand how to choose the keywords for those and how to optimize those pages. But here's the reality. It's a lot harder than it looks, right? I've been doing this almost a decade now. There's a lot in my little noggin here that I just know, but don't know that I know it. I'm the first to admit I'm not the best teacher just because I've done this over and over and over again. And even with everything I gave you, you're still going to hit bottlenecks, right? If information was the bottleneck to success, we'd all be sitting on our private yachts in the Mediterranean, right? There's so much information on the internet, but that's obviously not the constraint on all our success, right? There's a lot of ingrained knowledge that you just don't know until you try it yourself. So you kind of have two options here. Take everything I gave you, try and do it yourself, iterate over months and months. And 6 months from now, maybe you're getting somewhere, maybe you're not, but that's a lot of time wasted. Option 2 is, of course, just let me and my team build out this framework for you. And we'll have the entire foundation set in under a month. And from there, we can start building, that bottom of the funnel content engine, which also drives a lot of traffic. And it's just going to be a lot faster and a lot easier for you. And you'll get an ROI on your time a lot quicker. So if that interests you, and you're doing at least $100,000 per month in organic revenue. That's organic revenue, not top line revenue. There's a link below in the description where you can book a call with me. We're going to go through where you're at, where you're trying to go. So I'll give you specific tips on how to do this for yourself. And if I think we can help you out, I'll walk you through what that involves. Also, if you want to learn how to make killer collection pages using AI, click the video on screen here somewhere. Give me a like, give me a comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.